Jerry Goss, and I'm a flight attendant at American Airlines. I love everything that you guys do. I love the messaging that you get out. I love that you're reaching an untapped market, and I love that you're pulling people into the fray that are usually uninformed. I think that we have to take a moment to regroup and find new strategies and new ways of communicating a message to be able to change the outcome of the next election.
It's Monday, February 17th, 2025, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Let's be super clear about President's Day, and I'm really learning this stuff myself this morning. The apostrophe is outside the word presidents, which means this is a day set aside to consider the contributions of all the men. Much to our chagrin, so far, all men who have served as president, by no means just about the one we've got right now. It started as a day honoring George Washington near his February 22nd birthday. For brevity's sake, let's refer to the Presidential Greatness Project, which is put together in part by oft-quoted University of Houston political science professor Brandon Rottinghaus for their most recent top 10 U.S. presidents of all time ranking from just last year in descending order from number 1, Abraham Lincoln, FDR, Washington, Teddy Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson, Harry Truman, Barack Obama is number 7, Dwight Eisenhower, Lyndon Baines Johnson at number 9, and JFK rounds it out at number 10. This ain't our list, but Trump is at the very bottom, and this President's Day, we hope he manages to eventually do as little damage as possible and maybe bump up a place or two at least, maybe even ahead of terrible presidents like James Buchanan, Franklin Pierce, or Millard Fillmore. We're pulling for you, Donnie. If he can just reel in Elon Musk and stay on the golf course as much as possible, there might be hope, but that hasn't quite materialized just yet. The New York Times says the world's richest man and Texas's most deplored transplant and his team of teen hackers are this morning right on the edge of acquiring access to sensitive taxpayer data held by the IRS. We're talking your tax returns, social security numbers, addresses, banking details, employment information, all of it. As of last night, Gavin Klinger, the Doge hacker assigned to hack away at your IRS data, had not yet been granted full access, but certainly not for lack of trying. That's one to be following today. Musk and his guys don't take the weekends off, much less holidays. Sometimes they get so much momentum going and firing people that they allow our nation's stockpile of nuclear weapons to go unattended. An Associated Press report says the Pantex plant up near Amarillo saw about a third of a massive wave of hundreds of firings of federal employees charged with taking care of American nukes. That facility, well known up in Northwest Texas for its work on putting together nuclear warheads, one of the most sensitive jobs across the entire operation, requiring the highest levels of security clearance. Daryl Kimball, executive director of the Arms Control Association, says, quote, "The Doge people are coming in with absolutely no knowledge of what these departments are responsible for. They don't seem to realize that it's actually the Department of Nuclear Weapons more than it is the Department of Energy," unquote. At any rate, most of these firings have been rescinded, and those vital workers are back in place, and yet another example of why Elon Musk has no business doing what he's doing. Back to Texas for a bit of a bombshell, but not really, at least for those of us who have been paying attention to the years-long Republican push backed by out-of-state billionaires for the right to funnel your taxpayer dollars earmarked for our public schools to private, frequently church-based schools. Faith Bugenhagen at the Houston Chronicle says that even as GOP lawmakers in Austin and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick have been insisting that private school vouchers, under the plan they're currently fast-tracking through the legislature, would be fulfilled with funds other than those intended for public schools, Governor Greg Abbott has all but admitted that the voucher scam will, in fact, negatively impact public school funding. The governor tweeted late last week, quote, "The people defunding public schools are parents choosing a better option than what their assigned school provides. When they leave, the funding for that child leaves too," unquote. Democratic Representative Gene Wu of Houston, who's always good in these situations, piped up with a link to don'tdefundmyschool.com, a website that explains the potential damage for public schools afoot here. See that link in our show notes today. It's about to get cold again across Texas, just as the 4th anniversary of the 2021 Winter Storm Uri energy disaster arrives. Mose Bushell at KUT in Austin says that 4 years later, grave doubts remain about the Texas grid's reliability, especially considering that even after Uri, no major connections to neighboring grids have been established. We're still as much on our own as we were during that dismal and deadly failure 4 years ago. For a great many Texas families, still a very painful and personal memory as they lost loved ones. As a result, Mark Curridon at the Dallas Morning News writes that more than 30,000 individuals and small businesses have filed wrongful death, personal injury, and property damage lawsuits against ERCOT and the energy companies involved, claiming that their gross negligence and intentional decisions in the days leading up to and during Winter Storm Uri were a significant cause for the widespread blackouts and injuries that occurred that week. But again, 4 years later, not a single witness deposition has been taken and not a single case has been set for trial, as these energy companies have since shelled out hundreds of millions of dollars to prominent and expensive lawyers who are zealously fighting to keep those energy executives from ever being put under oath. Hundreds of millions of dollars that could have gone towards making things right for the victims of the neglect of energy billionaires. Those same billionaires are most likely on the hook for what's considered the sixth strongest earthquake ever measured in Texas history. Pavan Acharya at the Texas Tribune says the weekend started out in West Texas on Friday night with a 5.0 magnitude trembler centered near the border of Culberson and Reeves counties and felt as far away as El Paso at a distance of 150 miles. Acharya says scientists have attributed higher earthquake activity in West Texas to an increase in oil field fracking, which causes fluid pressures to increase within underground faults, leading to increased seismic activity. There are organized national protests happening this President's Day, once again put together by the 5051 group, notably in Houston at City Hall at Herman Square, noon to 4 today, and in Dallas at that town City Hall at the same time. As always, we encourage you to express yourself loud and proud, but also to be sure to do it with care and within the law. Don't give Trump and his followers any excuse to crack down, because you know they'd love to. Safe and smart is the way to do it today. February is Black History Month, and Progress Texas Advocacy Associate Tatum Owens has put together a great essay on this year's celebration, including an extensive list of Black History Month events taking place across the state. See also in the show notes a new listing of Black-owned businesses to support from the Austin American Statesman, including fine operations in El Paso, Corpus Christi, Houston, DeSoto, and many more. Our funding at Progress Texas is rarely sufficient for us to plan much more than a quarter or two ahead, but the conservative disinformation machine we face has no such obstacle. They're funded by oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups. Our regular everyday listeners form a key component of our funding here at Progress Texas. So if that's you, we could use your support as a monthly contributor, and no amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks to Lauren Pasick, Scott Lyford, and Janet Gilmore, all three of whom have joined the team lately. We appreciate all of you. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Monday, February 17th, 2025. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is a nonprofit, rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.